You've probably never heard of Blackrock because all it ever does is shrouded in mystery. Or maybe you have. Because it controls literally every major firm and financial institution in the world.
What?
But they've been doing this secretly and now gunning towards taking over governments. The fact that Blackrock was founded just recently creates a lot of questions around how they have achieved this level of domination in less than 4 decades. How close are they to world domination? In this video,
I will answer questions
and tell you how Blackrock secretly rules the world. While many accolades have been awarded to the likes of Michael Burry and Warren Buffett for predicting and profiting off the economic depression of 2008, very little credit has been given to Larry Fink for creating it in the first place.
Now let's talk about
Larry Fink, the man behind Blackrock. Born in a wealthy Los Angeles family in 1952, Fink was always power hungry. This would lead him to gain a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science at UCLA and begin a career in politics. He aspired to be one of the most outstanding men in America's political sphere, ruling the cities and nations as many times as possible until he breathed his last.
However,
it was soon evident that the real power was in wealth, in finance and abundance. So he switched courses and went into banking and real estate. At college, Fink left no stone unturned in learning about the mysterious ways of the rich and powerful, the powers that were and the powers that be. Before this time, he had been a full-time member of one of America's most secretive cult-like organizations, known as Kappa Beta Phi. As the first step in his plans for
world domination,
Fink took advantage of his connections at Kappa Beta Phi to land a job in the mortgage bond department at First Boston. This was a New York-based investment bank where Fink's financial prowess would come into play for the first time. He earned the company over $1 billion during his time at First Boston and was regarded as one of the most outstanding employees around. Fink achieved none of these successes for the company's betterment. Instead, they were all for his selfish ambitions. He was in charge of the department and began managing mortgage bonds and making investments for clients. He became an expert at the kind of trade and investment tactics that only he knew how to operate, and little by little, he started planting seeds that would germinate into the subprime mortgage crisis of 2008. The crisis began with Fink decades back in 1986, when he made a colossal mistake. After several risky investments, he lost $100 million belonging to the bank.
And as a result,
he was expelled from the company and never returned. From then on, Fink decided he would steer clear of risky business as he worked towards his goal of total financial control and world domination. He then teamed up with some of his acquaintances from Kappa Beta Phi to form Blackrock Capital Investment Corporation in 1988. They bought shares in major firms and financial institutions like banks, loan corporations, and social media enterprises, amongst others, to acquire power and sovereignty. The company grew exponentially, and in 1993, it was already worth over $8 billion. This was a jackpot for Fink and all his team members, but not everyone was happy about it. Around this time, the company suffered internal crisis as to who would hold the principal stake in the company. Of course, everyone thought they deserved fair treatment, but Fink knew he was the boss. When the power tussle was over, those that would leave left the company, and the people who didn't mind Fink's dictatorship as long as it meant fatter paychecks stayed back. With this, Fink's path to success was paved for him, and
No one can stop us.
he became more influential and successful as the years passed. But this wasn't enough for him. He wanted more.
This would be all he would need to get it.
In 2008, when the subprime mortgage crisis struck America, this was the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression of 1929. But Fink had it all under control. Let's track back to 1986 for a minute. Fink had made all these risky mortgage deals with his company's money in 1986. He knew the mortgage crisis of 2008 was coming, so he made Blackrock focus on asset management and control, which helped to shield the company from the 2008 crash. Meanwhile, many other companies, firms, organizations, and banks were severely damaged. Fink was the last man standing, with every other person on the floor. He had the key to the crisis and could stop it or intensify it at will, but it was bad enough as is, and Fink went on to his next step, using the situation to his advantage. Once again, exploiting his acquaintance with the former U.S. Secretary of Treasury, Timothy Geithner, Fink landed on the irrevocable contract to oversee the assets of many banks that crashed during the economic recession. With this, Blackrock had a hand in every pie. He was taking over subtly, and would soon become the most influential man on Wall Street. But it still wasn't enough for Fink. He wanted more and would go about getting it in every way possible. First, Blackrock began to offer exchange-traded funds, or EFTs. These are basically investment securities that help investors track particular indices or commodities. But unlike any other of its kind, it could be bought or sold just like any regular stock. People jumped on the trend for its stability and ease of gratification, and Blackrock, being at the hem of it all, sucked in all the profit. More than this, Blackrock went ahead to acquire considerable stakes in most of the significant corporations on the stock market. But Fink wasn't just doing it casually like every other investor. He gave a ton of money into building a supercomputer called Asset, Liability, and Debt Derivative Investment Network, or Aladdin for short. This computer analyzes the stock market and millions of other data to accurately predict what stocks would rise or fall and incur a loss or profit in the long run. This helped Blackrock to invest wisely and barely ever make a wrong trade or investment. The computer would also help Blackrock to manage assets worth over $20 trillion. It would use this money to establish its control over the world's economic state and eventually the world's governments. In recent times, Blackrock has again exploited a crisis to its advantage. Many companies were grounded by its effects when COVID-19, the global health crisis, struck in 2020. However, Blackrock boomed ever so steadily. The U.S. Federal Reserve hired the company to help control the economic crisis that may be as a result of this situation. This placed Blackrock at a level where the government depended on it for direction and finance. Again, they have non-hesitantly accepted this position and have fully embraced it as one of the tools in Fink's quest for total world control. At this point, you may be asking, how does this affect me?
I'll tell you.
As of 2021, Blackrock was in the ownership of assets worth over 10% of the world's real economy, having acquired considerable stakes in almost every primary industry. This made Larry Fink one of the wealthiest men on Earth, and this can only affect the world's population adversely. Fink doesn't just want to control the economy or the government, he wants to control you too.
Man, just like that.
He's launched it in full force. Given its unprecedented power, Blackrock now owns major stakes in oil companies, banks, weapon manufacturers, and other financial organizations. What's worse is that it controls the media. It owns most major information technology and media companies, such as Vanguard, Fox, CBS, Comcast, and Disney. Blackrock is also recognized as one of the most prominent investors in tech spaces like Google, Twitter, Amazon, Facebook, and more. What this level of control means for the ordinary person is that none of these companies can make decisions or implement policies without first consulting Blackrock. For this reason, the only information that finally gets to you are the ones they want you to see. Furthermore, Aladdin helps Blackrock in curating and analyzing the personal data of people around the world. For example, if you have an account in a bank or company where Blackrock has majority stake, you may knowingly or unknowingly give them money, and when you do, your personal information is made available to the company for analysis. This helps them decide your tastes and preferences and allows them to structure more avenues through which you can give them even more money. Apart from this, Blackrock has begun to invest majorly in buying up homes and properties, thus causing artificial inflation by driving prices of such homes to skyrocket. This works because BlackRock profits from rent increase when people do not own the homes that they live in. And while this is great for BlackRock, it translates to dire consequences for you and I.
It's a vicious cycle of never-ending madness.
First, with BlackRock owning most of the major companies people work in, they control how much salary is earned. Then, they control the prices of internet subscriptions, forcing you to return some of the money to them.
As if that weren't bad enough.
They go ahead and squeeze out the rest of your hard-earned money in the form of outrageous rent. However, it gets more sinister than this. The other world powers have bitten into BlackRock's tactics and aim at using it for their own selfish, ambitious benefits. A great example of this is something I like to call the Chinese invasion. China is known widely for its privacy violations and tight-end industries. For decades, the Chinese government has aimed to establish a dystopian world where there's no democracy, and the lives of all of its citizens are under digital surveillance. Slowly, China is attaining that goal. It operates a near-totalitarian government under Xi Jinping and doesn't allow little foreign investments or interventions in its political and domestic operations.
However,
in 2020, China allowed BlackRock access into their mutual fund industry, thus making them the first foreign company ever to do so. Now, BlackRock can invest in and own many of China's major companies. One such company is Hikvision, which creates surveillance and security technology for military and civilian use in China. Their technology has given rise to terms like facial recognition and privacy invasion, both of which are delisted by the US. These technologies are feared to be able to give China total control over the world and all the personal data of the people living living in it, thus giving rise to China's dystopian agenda. But Blackrock doesn't mind. If not any other thing, investing in these types of companies would aid their quest for more money and control. However, Larry Fink doesn't see that the player is being played. Ultimately, the Chinese government is exploiting Blackrock's financial capacity for its own agendas. Either way, innocent, unsuspecting citizens would suffer if Blackrock or the Chinese government won.
And there's nothing we can do about it.
Check out this playlist that I curated with videos I know you'll like if you enjoy this video.